Where does your money go? Wow, this was me some time ago. Let me take you back. The year was 2015. I'd just taken a 120-kilometer trip from the city to visit my parents. In one of my conversations with my dad, he asked me this question. So, what do you have to show for all the money you've earned since your first job? Wow. I had to call myself for a private meeting to think, what do I say? Um, uh, it had been about 4 years and I couldn't come up with a good response. It was embarrassing. No good response, not for him, not for me. I vowed that things had to be different. And so my financial awareness journey began. Since then, I learned more about personal finance. I've been able to consistently track my expenses for the past 6 years and counting. And this is me sharing the tips that have worked well for me and the expense trackers that have simplified my tracking life. Stick around for the story or jump ahead to the chapter that interests you. I'll go over the alternatives I considered, the approach I settled on, top tips, whether this might be for you or not, the light version demo of the tracker, and the full version demo. Let's get started. Initially, I went online, Google is your friend, and I looked for some expense tracking applications, but there was something missing. I didn't find the one, even after several months going down this path. I used an app called Toshel, seriously, that was the last one I had, but I still wanted more. I wanted more flexibility. I wanted more analytics. I wanted to be able to have something that I could grow with even after starting a family. I didn't want a monthly payment and I didn't want ads. And so eventually I decided to switch to Google Spreadsheets and I never looked back. Other alternatives in this space are spreadsheets. For example, Microsoft Excel is another popular one. Accounting applications like QuickBooks, depends on how familiar you are with these. And if you just want a no tax solution, there's paper and pen. Be ready to do a lot of math if you choose that route. But these are options to consider. Now that you know where I ended up, this is the approach that I had. I wanted my life to be as simple as possible. In the beginning, all I tracked was how much did I pay, who was I paying, what was the date. And I saw this as a game that allowed me to see who really benefited when I got paid. After several years, I created some reports to help me see who did I spend on, how much did I spend each month, and how much debt was I taking. Today, I'm able to account for my expenses very easily. I'm able to track my expenses consistently. I'm able to confirm suspicions about where my money went, and I can see trends and patterns based on the data that I've been able to track. Now, what are the tips that have worked for me that I think can work for you? Number one is the KISS principle. Keep it short and simple. A hashtag and an amount is all I need to track. So say, for example, I go and buy 10 items at Niva supermarket and the total comes to 2,000. All I need to do in my expense tracker is to track hashtag Nivas and 2,000. That's it. I even found a way to automate the date entries. Keep it simple and you're more likely to be able to track for a long time. Number two is spend holidays. As much as possible, I batch my expenses together. So for example, on my paydays or the weekend after, I'll do most of my expenses for the month then and also track them then. That is a significant part of it. I also do my best to not spend on weekdays. So most of my expenses will be on the weekend and I can do the tracking there. It really helps me stay disciplined in terms of spending and tracking. Number 3 is digital receipts. When I can, I'll pay using M-Pesa, card, or banking apps so I can use the SMS and email receipts as a reference. This really helps me, and whenever I make cash payments, I'll ask for a receipt when possible. Saves me from asking, how much did I spend again? Yeah, pretty simple. Simplify your life. Number 4 is creating a recording habit. You can do this, for example, instantly, as soon as possible, at the end of the day, or certain days of the week. I typically track digital transactions instantly. Just after I've made the transaction, I'll open the tracker and put them in. But when I go and make in-store purchases or use my card at a shop or pay cash, then I'll do that as soon as possible or at the end of the day. You can put some reminders on your phone. That can help. Also, tapping the like button for the algorithm. That will also help. Number 5 is mobile access. Just knowing that I can track and review my expenses on any trusted device that I own, as long as there's some reliable internet, makes things very easy for me. So if I travel, I don't have to worry that I can't continue with my tracking practice. So choose a solution that you can use even when you switch devices. That will help. And number 6 is accountability. Last year, I found a way to add a custom feature to my tracker so that my wife and I get expense summaries on WhatsApp at the end of every day if there was an expense recorded. This really helps us to see how much is being tracked and keep each other accountable. It's not something that comes built into the tracker that I'm going to share, but it is an example of how you can get accountability if you want it, or customize this expense tracking solution to suit your needs. I hope this is helpful. Let's move on to whether this might be a good solution for you or not. It might be for you if you have money suspicions. You can't easily account for where your money goes. Number 2 might be for you if you want better awareness of where your money is actually going. Number 3 is you have a big picture focus. So if you look at a receipt, you're not interested in tracking every single item on the receipt. The total amount and the name of the company or the person is good enough for you. This might be a good fit. Number 4 is flexibility. You want something that you can customize. You want something you can use for years, that doesn't have to have a monthly subscription or ads. Then this might be a good fit. Number 5 is analytics. So you want done-for-you analytics that show you how or whether you spend to plan, and perhaps something that can help you make data-informed budgets going forward. This solution might not be for you if you're already money sure. So you already can account for where your money goes easily, and you probably don't need it. Also, number 2, you want an automated expense tracking solution. This isn't it. Number 3, you don't want a solution that involves spreadsheets. Number 4, you want to be able to track items and categories separately out of the box. You can make customizations to this tracker to help you do this, but it doesn't come out right out of the gates. And number 5, you want a budgeting template, not an expense tracking template. So a budget is you telling your money where it should go, and an expense tracker tells you where it actually went. So it's demo time. I'm going to show you the light version first, and then we'll move on to the full version. You'll be able to see a tracker that has a guide. It shows you what's included in this light version, so the sheets and what purpose they serve. It also shows you the extras that are in the full version. Down here, you have some information. So for example, this is a note that shows a tooltip with some information that could be helpful for you. And then whenever you see this shade of blue, that's an input field that you can edit. And then some formulas will work in the background to give you some interesting perspective. There is a script that helps to automate the date entries, which can be helpful. So save you one more thing, and I'll show you that in a bit. This is the tracker, and it's the main thing. It's like the engine or the heart of this thing. This is where your expenses go. So we already have a payment to the landlord, some gifts to God, to the church, payment to Safaricom and Naivas. If you spent using a credit card or borrowed money, you can use the hashtag debt here to just make a note of that, and then the dates go here. At the top, you'll see a tally of how much money has been tracked for today and how much money of that was using debt. And then at the very top, you see total amount tracked since the beginning of your tracking history, both total expenses and just with debt. Then you have number of days you've been able to use this tracker and today's date. So here's an example of me adding another one. The recommended approach is to insert a row above and type out your new expense. I will make another entry for Naivas. I went there, I bought something worth 1,500, and the date is automatically entered for me. Suppose I had to use an Uber and it cost me 400 shillings and the charge went to my credit card. I can put that there and you'll see the entries go up over here. That's basically how to use it. Just the hashtag and the amount, debts if it's applicable, and you can also edit this date if you want. For example, if you spent a week without tracking your expenses and you still have the receipts, then you can just come and enter the dates manually. The next tab is the summary. This shows an ordered list of highest expense to least expense. So for example, there were 2 entries for Naivas with a total of 3,500. So you won't have duplicate entries here. It just shows you in total, this is how much you've spent at Naivas since you began tracking. And the total amount is that. And on this side, you have a chart that shows you who you're working for. So for example, most of the money has gone to the landlord, second place, Naivas, and then to the church, to God. We also have an interesting calculation here, which shows you that if you pay yourself 10%, if that's your goal, then you should have this amount based on the expenses that you've tracked. So for example, if you change your goal and you want to pay yourself 20%, then you should have 4,475 shillings if you have actually spent 17,900 somewhere in one of your accounts or your pocket. Maybe not under your mattress, but yeah, this gives you a check. And if you look at this list, if you were paying yourself 20% and you should have this 4,000, then you would be the number 2 person that you're actually working for. But if you don't have this, then it means that you're primarily working for these people. Those are the real beneficiaries. The next tab is a year review, which will tally the total amount you've tracked in a given month. And you can put a goal here that says, for example, you don't want to spend more than 40,000 shillings in a month, and it will tell you how well you're doing towards your goal. If you go beyond the goal, say for example, this was 10,000 shillings, then it shows you some danger. You have to think about it a bit more. On this side, you have a chart that will show you a graph of how your expenses vary month by month, if you have that data. And then on this other side, you have a trend showing you how does your expenses vary based on the weekday. It seems like Saturday is the day that I'm most likely to spend based on this data. And that's because there are 4 transactions that have been tracked on a Saturday, and the first runner up is Wednesday, the next runner up is Thursday. And so this is helpful if you are thinking about, am I more likely to spend on a weekend? If yes, then maybe I should take some precautions to be more aware of that, and it can help you improve your spending. Cool. This is the light version. I've been using it for quite a while, tested it with 6 years worth of data, and it will serve you really well. If you want to get details on how you can get access, please check down in the description box and you'll be able to find the link. Next is the full version. So for the full version, what I'm demoing here is a demo sheet, not the actual one that you'll get access to, because I wanted you to see some dummy data that will give you a better idea of how it works. This is pretty much similar to the light version. The tracker is also similar to the light version. You insert a row above if you want to enter your data. Now, the reason I do this is I realize that after tracking for a month or even a year, it makes so much sense to have your most recent expenses first, because you don't want to scroll all the way down so that you can make a new entry. So this is how I decided to go about it, and I recommend you do the same. So we have the summary, very similar to the light version. You can see a different split over here. You also have this handy calculator that will tell you how much money you should have if you have actually spent this amount of money. And for the year review, very similar, but wait, there's more. We have this section over here, which shows the stats. So biggest spending dates based on the year 2021 data is this date and this date and this date based on amount. We also have the same based on the day of the month. So these are the days of the month which I'm most likely to spend if this was my data. And these are the weekdays where highest spending occurs. And on this side, we have something similar. Frequent spending days, Friday. So if you look at the trend in the week, this is how money tends to leave. The biggest day is Friday. So if I had this data, I would be thinking, is this okay? Is this because of batching, or should I do something to change that? Basically, it's up to you to influence how you spend your money, but it's a helpful thing. And then you can also change the year. So for example, based on this year's data, we have just 17,000 spent in February. No data tracked in the other months, but you get the idea. The next one is the expense trend, and this helps answer the question, how much money did I spend particularly on one thing? So for example, how much did I give to God? And type that there. You can include the hashtag or not. It does the same thing. If I change this and put church, that's basically the same thing. If I want to see how much I spent at Naivas, then I can see automatically the numbers here, how many transactions in those months, how it looks like in terms of this chart, and then the days that are more likely to go to Naivas are Friday and Saturday based on this data that is tracked here. Also, you have the same stats at the bottom, which show the biggest spending dates for this particular hashtag. So if you want to drill down into, do you spend a lot at that place you like to eat? Do you spend a lot going to the kiosk nearby? Do you spend a lot at a certain supermarket? As long as you've tracked it here with a specific hashtag, you'll be able to drill down and see how your behavior actually tallies up. The next one is an expense report. So again, this is dummy data. You can select a start date. So I tend to do this with paydays. So if, for example, I get paid on 1st, then select that, and then the end date 31st. So I want to see how much I spent within a particular pay period, although you can even look at dates that are 3 months or a whole year. If you're trying to do some analysis, for example, comparing one year to another, you'll see a list of transactions here from the smallest to the largest and the total amount spent in that time. You have a graph over here, donut chart, showing you biggest expense was the landlord, and then family, and then God, and then so on and so forth. You have stats on this side showing you the biggest spending days by amount and by frequency of transactions. And then you have a ceiling here. So for example, if your goal was to spend not more than 50,000, then it will tell you that you've spent 49,000 more. And this is up to you to be able to track how much you have to spend. And then right now, if the goal is 100,000, it tells me have 926 left before I get into the red. And that's based on this amount over here. I go down, the biggest expense was 25,600. And then this column shows something that I picked up from Your Money or Your Life. It's an interesting concept. So if you earn 500 shillings or $500 per hour, then based on this, it says you have to work 51 hours to be able to afford this payment to the landlord. You have to work 36 hours to afford this payment that you spent on your family. And so this is the equivalent of working a whole week. And this is the equivalent of working more than a week. Actually, yes, more than a week. Let's say 1.5. You can do the math. And so you have to ask yourself, after working for more than a week, just to be able to pay my rent, how does that make me feel? Is that valuable to me? Am I getting fulfilled? These are some of the questions that you can think about as you continue on this journey. So that's it for the expense report. We have the debt trend and the debt report, which are very similar to the expense trend and the expense report. The only difference is that they'll show you the expenses that have a hashtag debt. So this is money that you spent using a credit card or borrowed money. And it's helpful, especially for tracking how much do you owe the credit card company. So for example, when you're running the reports, you can just select the first date of your credit card statement, and then the end date can be the last date of your credit card statement. And this helps me see how much do I owe, and so I can plan for it. If you want to get access to the full version, all you have to do is tap the like button and check the instructions down below in the description box. If you made it this far, thank you so much for joining. And to appreciate you, I have a bonus tip. Adopt an enabling mindset to help you succeed. I chose to see expense tracking as a game or detective series that would help me learn who's actually getting paid. I mean, for real, when I get paid, who's benefiting? And my suggestion to you is to pick a perspective that makes this interesting for you and choose tools that make sense for you. Financial independence can only be reached through financial awareness, if for nothing, just to confirm the suspicions you have about where your money is actually going. Comment down below if you have any questions or tips of your own that would benefit the community. I also have Google Sheets for budgeting, tracking assets, and planning for retirement and more. Let me know if you'd like to see a video from me on one of these in the future. If you found this video helpful, please don't forget to tap the like button and share it with others who might benefit as well. You can also show your support by buying me a coffee using the links in the description below. I hope this will be you enjoying because you know where your money went, and you're happy with the value and fulfillment you receive in exchange. Thank you so much. Till next time, grow the goods.